60 miles north of Luxor, on the west bank of the Nile, is a town called Dendara. And it is here, in December of 1798, that Napoleon's troops stumbled upon a temple buried in sand. The men, stopping for a rest, admired the ornate top of a once great temple. But a curious artist by the name of Dominique Vivant Denon jumped off his horse with a sketch pad and fumbled his way through the submerged gates. His curiosity led to one of the greatest discoveries. What he and the troops had stumbled upon was the Temple of Hathor at Dendara, and more importantly, a depiction of a zodiac. Could the beauty of this temple hide within its walls the brains behind the workings in the universe and the timeline of humanity?
When Napoleon's savants reached Dendara, they went inside, and under the leadership of a man named Denon, they went into the upper chambers, and there was a very dark, small chapel. And when Denon looked up with his torch, he saw that on the ceiling was this astronomical depiction of the sky in circular form. And it's become known as the Dendara Zodiac. And around this, in symbolic form, is the 12 signs of the zodiac, along with various other constellations. And then other figures beyond this in a circle representing the 36 so-called deacons. These are the gods and goddesses who would have represented each one 10 days of the year, creating 360 in all.
This discovery sparked the interest of archaeologists all over the world. At the time, no one was able to translate hieroglyphs, and this zodiac was hope that finally they would have a date of when ancient Egypt was built. However, the mystery of this great temple kept unraveling.
When the Dendara Zodiac first emerged in Paris, it caused an absolute sensation because it seemed to the scholars originally that it pushed back the dating of human civilization tens of thousands of years. And it introduced the dreaded A word into the conversation about ancient Egypt. And the A word, of course, is Atlantis, because the scholars are looking at this and saying, this zodiac talks about civilization going back tens of thousands of years. There is no civilization tens of thousands of years ago except Atlantis. And so still that's a perspective that is held by many, that in fact the Dendara Zodiac was there to specifically tell us that there have been previous human civilizations on Earth going back many thousands of years.
The zodiac is believed to depict ancient astrology and time periods from as far back as 14,000 years ago. Freddie Silva points out that there is actually another unique date depicted in its constructs, and this marks the original building of the temple before the most recent version.
It had been there for so long, and it had been rebuilt, and added to over time. And it's miraculous what the Greeks did to rebuild the temple. And a lot of people will say this is a Greek temple. Well, it's not. The Greeks rebuilt what was already there, and they restored it to what we see today. And one of the most incredible finds was that they discovered there's a complete obsession with the sky. And that tells you everything you need to know about the origins. And if you look very closely, and if you follow the constellations, because they're all marked on there, each one of them behaves like an ever-decreasing spiral. Not a circle, it's a spiral that goes to the center, and there's the center is marked by a big calf. And if you happen to look at where the calf's leg points to, the first constellation in that zodiac is the constellation of Cancer, the crab. And that tells you about the origins, because the constellation of the crab puts us now in the time period of about 8,000 BC, which just happens to be the time period when agriculture and civilization mysteriously appears in Egypt the first time. Which also happens to coincide with the time period when the followers of Horus, the Shining Ones, appear after the flood along the Nile rebuilding the temples and adding their information to the temples. And I suspect that Dendara was one of those sites.
If Dendara was an ancient site depicting astrologically the existence of humans on Earth, is it possible this temple also connects its origins to the stars? Mythology has it there wasn't just one Hathor, there were 7. The myth of 7 goddesses, however, is not just connected to this temple. It has its origins all over the world. Could it be that these female deities that the temple was named after were otherworldly in nature? According to Egyptian archaeologist Abdelrahman A. Amin in his book titled Dendara, Land of the Goddess Hathor, he concludes from several studies that the temple is on an azimuth of 18 degrees -7, which aligns its structure to the Ursa Major stars. This is an unusual alignment for a temple in Egypt. But Anton Parks explains that this star system, known as the Great Bear, is connected to a lineage of divine females that came to Earth thousands of years ago. He connects their lineage back to the Sumerian god Enki, or as he calls him, Sa'am, and the goddess named Namu.
At this point in the story, Namu and Sam leave the Great Bear constellation, to go to the Pleiades in order to execute what was planned by the Marduku. They must create a large quantity of Amashutum priestesses who will help them in their work. They will create 82 Amashutum to work with the land and plantations for one part, and with the small cattle on the other part. Their role in the story is significant because they have great powers. They are allowed to clone under certain conditions. They are scattered throughout the universe. They are on Earth, but they are also in the Great Bear, the Pleiades, and quite a few places in the universe.
If this is true, could this temple be aligned to Ursa Major to point to the origins of the goddesses? Many ancient cultures have a similar mythology of 7 goddesses that come from the Pleiades. Maybe this connection comes full circle here in Dendara, a reminder that their origins stretch from one star system to the next.
Over many years, I've collected a lot of artifacts. And on these ancient artifacts, the majority of them depict something called the 7 sisters. It's pretty interesting that when you go into ancient texts, you discover that a lot of these civilizations supposedly started in the Pleiadian star system, which is where you have the 7 sisters. It's been mentioned in Homer's Iliad, it's been mentioned in the Bible, many other texts as well. But what's interesting is the Aboriginal people of Australia also say that they were the first people seated on this planet by the Pleiadians. So this Ursa Major plays a very, very major role in the Temple of Dendara, and also maybe even seating human beings on this planet.
The mission of the 7 Hathors is to bring a consciousness level to the people. So in our world, there are 7 women or 7 goddesses or 7 deities that represent Pleiades. And the Pleiadians are instrumental in helping create various civilizations around the world. They have always helped Earth, coming here and creating new civilizations, cross-pollinating with people, and helping other demigods to create a new phase of humanity. The 7 women or 7 goddesses, the 7 Hathors, are represented around the world in various religions and cultures. The sistrum was used in ceremony to actually activate, through sound, the vibration of Pleiades. This is a very important instrument that the Hathors were in charge of. And they all played the sistrum to bring about the vibration of their home, Pleiades.
This otherworldly vibration seems to have an effect even today as people walk through the great hypostyle hall. Was it possibly built to hold the frequency of these otherworldly beings in hopes they would be able to help humanity? Anton Parks believes a machine used to travel interdimensionally happens to reside in another dimension of existence in the temple itself. This, in turn, gives off its strange frequency.
Selon ma compréhension de toute cette histoire,
According to my understanding of this story, this is the place where the Zeta machine would be. This is the well-known counter-rotating machine on the site of Dendara.
sur le site de Dendara. Il faut savoir que
I have
Dendara,
visited
c'est un site
Dendara
très
several
particulier.
times. There are several areas that are quite particular in Dendara. When visiting the site, we can feel that there are some electromagnetic areas where you have the feeling your legs are falling down, where you feel really tired, a headache.
Une grosse fatigue, un mal de crâne,
Near the Dendara temple is the House of the Phoenix,
la demeure du Phénix. Et je pense que c'est précisément à cet endroit-là.
and I think the Zeta machine is located right there.
En étant sur place, sur le site.
When you go inside, right away you come into this area where there's two gigantic granite slabs that are magnetized. So when I took out my camera to videotape this, I saw the magnetism interfering with my camera. There's a specific frequency interacting with the magnetism there that gives you this kind of a buzz that you can feel when you're walking through.
If this is true, what kind of frequency could be harnessed in this temple?
Hathor represented our relationship to sound, perhaps more specifically to vibration, because there are some vibrations that are important to us that cannot be heard. And it was in this place that we see Hathor actually applying the technology of vibration in the earthly realm to healing as well as to security and defense. We see Hathor holding back the beings that are coming at her in force, that want to hurt her, holding back with a force. We see her healing the body of those that are brought to her, using the power of vibration, not necessarily sound, but vibration. So Hathor now is associated very, very closely with this technology of sound, of vibration, and our relationship to sound and vibration in our lives, relationships that are only now being revealed through the best science of the modern world.
If this mysterious temple has been encoded with not only the history of our human existence, but a frequency generated by an otherworldly source, is it possible to decode this power?
Is such a sophisticated, subtle, technologically advanced understanding of our relationship to the world. It transcends this polarity between male and female. They had gone beyond those differences.
One of the most mysterious temples of Egypt is Dendara, because everything that you can see in that temple is like an open book to understand how the Egyptians inherit the information from the Atlanteans. And even if Dendara itself didn't have this technology and these physical tools to make the machine work as the Atlanteans would do, they kept that information. Hathor is the mother. And for all ancient civilizations, the main mother that gave milk for many people, for many animals, was the cow. Hathor was this feminine aspect with cow-like ears and eyes. But the interesting thing about this temple is that by the building of itself is talking about the history of our interpretation of the mother. And this is also why still today we call our galaxy Milky Way, because it was the way of milk, the path of milk that this great cow was living in the cosmos. We can see all the constellations. And all these constellations are held by 12 columns with the head of Hathor looking into the 4 directions of time and space. So we have 12 columns that holds the cosmos. These 12 represents the 12 directions in which a sphere observes the reality. The 12 directions are the faces and the nodes of the icosahedron. The icosahedron is a structure that has 12 nodes that points into the sky. So 12 is the most important code that we could have to understand the different perspective of a sphere. So by this, we also can find many of the codes of the universe. The 12 faces of the planet are facing towards 12 constellations. These 12 constellations are the ones that represents the power of the self being imprinted in the reality. This means that when the spirit wants to be born, they have to go through the 12 of these phases of the universe, the 12 constellations, and taking something from each one of them in order to get into the sphere that we call Earth, the planet, or the sphere that we call the womb. So the personality, the being, the soul needs to have the potential of these 12 constellations in order to come down. This is why the teachings of Dendara was astronomy and astrology, to understand how the universe moves, how the Milky Way moves, and how we are created by these stars. The other thing is vibration. 12 vibrations, which is related with the 12 notes of music. These 12 vibrations are also a projection of geometry. If we count the position 12, we will find the 144. So this means that when you reach the 144 vibrations in the code of the truth, you will find all the perspectives of the universe. So all the vibrations are encoded in just the 12 columns. So 144 represents the vibration of the main structure that we call the seed of life. The seed of life is the structure of the octahedron. And this octahedron is just one aspect. So one is matter, the other one is energy, and the other one is frequency, vibration. So 144 as a seed of matter, 144 as a seed of energy, and 144 as a seed of vibration. And when you have 144 by 3, you will find 432, which is the perfect vibration to align with the heart, which is the main purpose of the temple, to align with the heart of the mother. So 432 is the vibration to accomplish, to reach the core of this temple. So by the vibration 432, we could reach the perfect amount of vibration to create energy in the void. So when they created energy in the void, they could enlighten the cities, they could enlighten everything just by vibration. This is the free energy that this temple is talking about, is how to use the directions of the universe in order to create free energy, in order to use the flow of the Kundalini that is in every matter, in everything that exists.
Kundalini. Is it possible that encoded in this temple is not only the understanding of how the universe works, but the tools to return back to whence we came thousands of years ago? Could this mysterious temple of Dendara, dedicated to the Mother of the Cosmos, be one of the last remaining books of the Atlantean knowledge and our origins here on the planet? Freddie Silva points out this is also one of the last remaining feminine temples during a time when her wisdom was fading from the minds of the people.
The Greeks also realized that the information was being lost, so the only way they're going to keep the information from disappearing was to carve it back onto the walls of the temple, any temple associated with the creative cycle of nature. And this was particularly important at a time when the world was becoming so much more masculine. We're talking about an era of conflict, of solar energy, the unbridled solar ego, and the domination of empires over others and so forth. It was a really horrible time to be in. So to have this wonderful moment where the feminine energy, the flowing life force of nature, is able to still survive amid this sea of chaos was wonderful.
This is also a temple dedicated to a very important divine force, a magnificent machine able to bring the history of this place, the history of this planet, the history of the humankind that is being signed in different moments of time with very important, significant historical moments. So Dendara is not only a monument, but Dendara is still active.
Is it possible, from the information we gleaned from Matthias, that the temple is encoded with the knowledge of the universe that makes it alive in other dimensions? Could the machine that Anton Parks explains even exist in this frequency? And can this frequency actually be active today? A frequency from an otherworldly source? Whatever the frequency might be defined as, the temple itself left behind a timeline of our existence on the planet so that we would not forget our female lineage. Maybe the Mother of the Universe is beckoning you back from where you came so you may understand your true origin, your true vibration, and your individual light within the universe.